Hi guys! So the book that I chose is called Now One Foot, Now the Other. It's by Tommy DePaolo, who actually just recently passed away, so I thought it was a good one to read. Now One Foot, Now the Other by Tommy DePaolo. Bobby was named after his best friend, his grandfather Bob. When Bobby was just a baby, his grandfather told everyone, "Bobby will be 3 years old before he can say Grandpa, so I'm going to have him call me Bob." And Bob was Bobby's first word. Bob was the one who helped Bobby learn to walk. "Hold on to my hands, Bobby," said his grandfather. "Now one foot, now the other." One of the best things Bob and Bobby did was to play with the old wooden blocks that were kept on a shelf in the small sewing room under the front steps. The blocks had letters on 2 sides, numbers on 2 sides, and pictures of animals and other things on the last 2 sides. Bob and Bobby would slowly, very slowly, put the blocks one on top of the other, building a tall tower. There were 30 blocks. Sometimes the tower would fall down when only half the blocks were piled up. Sometimes the tower would be almost finished. "Just one more block," Bob would say. "And that's the elephant block," Bobby would say. And they would carefully put the elephant block on the very top. But Bob would sneeze and the tower would fall down. Bobby would laugh and laugh. "Elephants always make you sneeze, Bob," Bobby would say. "We'll just have to try the next time," his grandfather said. Then Bob would sit Bobby on his knee and tell him stories. "Bob, tell me the story about how you taught me to walk," Bobby would say. And his grandfather would tell Bobby how he held Bobby's hands and said, "Now one foot, now the other." And before you knew it, on Bobby's 5th birthday, Bob and he had a special day. They went to the amusement park. They rode a roller coaster, ate hot dogs, and ice cream. They had their picture taken in a machine, and they sang a song and made a phonograph record. And when it got dark, they watched the fireworks. On the way home, Bob told Bobby stories. "Now tell me the story about how you taught me to walk," Bobby said. So Bob did. Not long after Bobby's birthday, his grandfather got very sick. Bobby came home and his grandfather wasn't there. "Bob is in the hospital," Dad told Bobby. "He's had what's called a stroke." "I want to go see him," Bobby said. "You can't, honey," Mom told him. "Right now, Bob's too sick to see anyone. He can't move his arms and legs, and he can't talk. The doctor's not sure if he knows who anyone is. We'll just have to wait and hope Bob gets better." Bobby didn't know what to do. He didn't want to eat. He had a hard time going to sleep at night. Bob just had to get better. Months and months and months went by. Bob was still in the hospital. Bobby missed his grandfather. One day when Bobby came home from school, his father told him that Bob was coming home. "Now, Bobby," Dad said, "Bob is still very sick. He can't move or talk. When he sees your mother and me, he still doesn't know who we are, and the doctor doesn't think he'll get any better. So don't be scared if he doesn't remember you." But Bobby was scared. His grandfather didn't remember him. He just laid in bed. And when Dad carried him, Bob sat in a chair, but he didn't talk or even move. One day, Bob tried to say something to Bobby, but the sound that came out was awful. Bobby ran out of the room. "Bob sounded like a monster," Bobby cried. "He can't help it, Bobby," Mom said. So Bobby went back to the room where Bob was sitting. It looked like a tear was coming down Bob's face. "I didn't mean to run away, Bob. I was scared." "I'm sorry," Bobby said. "Do you know who I am?" Bobby thought he saw Bob blink his eye. "Mom! Mom!" Bobby called. "Bob knows who I am." "Oh, Bobby," Mom said, "you're just going to upset yourself. Your grandfather doesn't recognize any of us." But Bobby knew better. He ran to the small sewing room under the front stairs. He took the blocks off the shelf and ran back to where Bob was sitting. Bob's mouth made a small smile. Bobby began to build the tower. Halfway, almost to the top, only one block left. "Okay, Bob," said Bobby, "now the elephant block." And Bob made a strange noise that sounded like a sneeze. The blocks fell down, and Bob smiled and moved his fingers up and down. Bobby laughed and laughed. Now he knew that Bob would get better. And Bob did. Slowly, he began to talk a little. It sounded strange, but he could say Bobby just as clear as day. Bob began to move his fingers and then his hands. Bobby still helped him to feed his grandfather, but one day Bob could almost hold a spoon by himself. But he still couldn't walk. When the weather got nice and warm, Dad carried Bob out of a chair, sat on the lawn. Bobby sat with him. "Bobby," Bob said, "story." So Bobby told Bob some stories. Then Bob stood up very slowly. "You, me, walk," said Bob. Bobby knew exactly what Bob wanted to do. Bobby stood in front of Bob and let Bob lean on his shoulders. "Okay, Bob, now one foot." Bob moved one foot. "Now the other foot." Bob moved the other. By the end of the summer, Bob and Bobby could walk to the end of the lawn, and Bob could talk better and better each day. On Bobby's 6th birthday, Bobby got the blocks. Slowly he built up the tower. "Only one block to go." "Here, elephant block," Bob said, and Bobby put it on top. Bob sneezed. "Elephants always make you sneeze, Bob," Bobby said. "We'll just have to try the next time. Now, tell me some stories." And Bob did. Then Bob said, "Bobby, tell a story how you teach Bob to walk." "Well, Bob, you learned on my shoulders, and then I said, 'Now one foot, now the other.' And before you knew it, the end." So, the reason I chose this book, Now One Foot, Now the Other, is because I have a grandfather who didn't have a stroke, but he struggles from incredibly painful arthritis, neuropathy. His legs have pretty much stopped working. So this book really spoke to me, and I hope that when I read it, it made you guys think of somebody that you care about, or maybe just a more general sense of some elderly people in the world who, especially with what we're going through right now, may feel extra isolated. There's a lot of nursing homes that family members can't even get in to see their loved ones, and you think about this story and the possibility of anyone coming home or anyone visiting someone that they love has completely gone away. So for my project, I wanted to talk about my own grandfather and something that throughout this quarantined time me and him have been doing together. And that is letter writing. So he sent me a letter. It's kind of chicken scratchy, but it's the best he could do. And it basically just tells me all the things he's doing and the things he's thinking about, and he asks me a lot of questions. So of course I started to respond. And we've been going back and forth, sending each other letters and things like that. And then he started to send me these coloring pages that he was doing. So they're pretty nice. But you could tell that he put a lot of work into them, and this is something that probably isn't the easiest for him to do because he has really terrible arthritis. So it meant a lot to me to get something like that in the mail. So what I want, and then I colored a picture for him too, and I wrote him a letter, and it's been really, really nice. And I think I feel a stronger sense of connection with him. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is to either choose someone that you know that's in your family that is elderly, or it doesn't have to be an elderly person, maybe just someone older than you, and write them a letter. So I made a kind of letter starter with some really interesting questions on there that you can ask them, and I think reading their response is going to be really interesting. And I just feel like, especially now, we need to be doing this with people who might otherwise be lacking that connection with other people. So I hope that you actually do it, and I hope that you think of someone in your life that you could send it to. And if not, I have linked a few nursing homes that I know that are accepting letters from people. And also I've linked a coloring sheet that if you wanted to send along with your letter, you can. So that is my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it. And again, the book is Now One Foot, Now the Other. Thank you.